Texas lawmakers are continuing the debate over adding stories from the Bible to public school textbooks.
What some passionate parents and others had to say about this proposal. Plus, a new development over Hamilton Pool is on its way. What makes this project a little different from what we're used to seeing here in Central Texas.
And temperatures starting to drop out towards the panhandle as we see another front approaching. When it will arrive and how it will affect you, coming up in your first warning weather.
In-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News at Noon.
State leaders in charge of public school curriculum are continuing discussion over if Bible stories should be added to Texas curriculum.
A passionate group gathered as the State Board of Education heard from the public. More than 150 people signed up yesterday alone to speak on this issue, hoping to sway the board's decision. That debate picks up again today. The proposed Bluebonnet curriculum includes biblical stories to teach reading and language arts in kindergarten through 5th grade. Supporters say this teaches moral lessons rooted in Jesus and emphasizes a Christian foundation in American history.
Not only is learning about common stories and phrases from the Bible important in a student's understanding of history, but it is the First Amendment right to have access to this information.
However, some religious and academic leaders united to denounce the material. Critics say this is not a neutral review of religious history, but rather it favors just one belief.
They promote particular religious views over others, and in doing so, they violate parents' rights to determine the religious upbringing of their children.
If the state board approves the Bluebonnet material, schools don't have to use them, but districts that do will be incentivized financially. If the board passes the new materials, they'll become available for schools starting in August 2025. The Texas Department of Public Safety is being asked to identify and arrest members of the Chinese Communist Party in Texas.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order yesterday. This all comes after the arrest of accused secret police officers of China operating in the U.S. The FBI released a statement reading, quote, China's government may target, threaten, intimidate, and harass U.S.-based individuals who question the legitimacy or the authority of the Chinese Communist Party. For some added context, last year a jury convicted 3 people in New York. The Department of Justice said they targeted people on behalf of the Chinese government.
In the governor's order, he said there's believed to be an illicit Chinese government police station operating in Houston. In his executive order, he asked DPS to, quote, assess the incidents where foreign governments extend their reach beyond their borders to intimidate Texans, end quote. To report suspicious activity, call the FBI at the number on the bottom of your screen or visit iwatchtexas.org.
There is a new effort in Washington to ban transgender women from using female restrooms at the U.S. Capitol. House Republican Nancy Mace of South Carolina introduced a resolution yesterday. It's coming weeks before Democrat Sarah McBride is set to become the first openly transgender member of Congress. The measure would prohibit any lawmakers and House employees from using same-sex facilities other than those corresponding to their biological sex. If passed, the measure would not require approval by the Senate or a signature from the president. We are waiting now to see if Caldwell County will appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court on a case involving your right to information.
The federal appeals court just ruled the county's policy to keep bail hearings private violates the First Amendment. It upheld an earlier ruling that keeping the public and the media out of bail hearings is a violation. In the lawsuit, the county said there is no constitutional right for the press and public to participate in, quote, such informal proceedings. The plaintiff's lawyer says the decision could have ripple effects throughout the state.
They unanimously ruled that that the press and public have this First Amendment right, which is fundamental to our democratic system of self-government.
You can now access Caldwell County's bail hearings on video stream. We asked if the county will appeal, and we are waiting to hear back. Well, to give some insight, a judge declared Harris County's entire misdemeanor bond system unconstitutional in 2017. The judge found the system prematurely punished those accused who didn't have the money to make bond and get released from jail. Since then, the county says it implemented the necessary changes to create a fair, less discriminatory system.
First warning weather.
This afternoon, we're taking a live look over downtown Austin. Those gorgeous blue skies hanging out today after that rainfall yesterday moved on out, and we are seeing some really nice temperatures out there, Freddie, though we are expecting a big drop tomorrow, right?
That's right. So, I know a lot of people say, I wait till Thanksgiving to put up my Christmas lights, but some other people say they want to do it early. Well, guess what? What do I recommend? Should you put up your lights today? My answer is yes. Do it, and do it now, because it's going to be a tad colder over the next couple of days. I mean, already we're starting to see temperatures rebound just a tad. We talked about that radiational cooling that happens. And that's why in the mornings we drop down to the 40s and 50s, and during the day we move back up into the 70s and 80s. And right now we're back up to around 74 in Austin, 77 in Georgetown, 74 in Fredericksburg, and 74 degrees out towards Mason County. No cloud coverage, so all that daytime heating is going to go. Early in the morning we'll be down into the 40s once again. In fact, this is a live look out of our Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in South Austin. A beautiful sky with not even a cloud there. So how cold will it be tonight? 48 degrees. How cold will it be on Thursday morning? That's because of that next front that's coming in overnight tonight. We'll be down to 40 degrees. By Friday, 44, and by Saturday, 47. So you may have to crank up the heat just a tad early in the morning. So what am I going to be tracking? Well, that next front that's on the way, the cold mornings that I just mentioned, and then steady weather pattern that's coming up over the next few days. I have all of this and so much more, so keep it right here.
Freddie, thank you so much. A proposed development near Hamilton Pool got the green light Monday. It's for an innovative plan to provide water to a 1,400-acre project near the Hayes-Travis County line.
It will pull water directly from Lake Travis. Joining us now is senior science reporter Eric Henriksen. And Eric, this development is a little atypical of what we usually see in Central Texas.
Right. This is a larger development, but they're actually going to shrink things down a little bit. So it's a 1,400-acre development called Mirasol Springs. They're aiming with conservation in mind. So there's going to be 40 homes, a hotel, larger lots. They're implementing like really restrictive environmental policy. So there's restrictions on how many wells people can build. The answer is none. That's how many wells, 0 wells. Impervious cover. They have irrigation that's using gray water, that's reused water. They have all these plans in place to limit the damage to the environment. This area of the Hill Country, this is on Hamilton Pool Road, right on the border of Travis and Hayes County, near Hamilton Pool. It's like, I don't know, a mile down the road from Hamilton Pool, something like that. It's really, really close. That area is full of karsty rock. So karst is like rock with a lot of little holes in it, and any chemicals, any like fertilizer, things like that can seep into the aquifers below, and this whole area is filled with springs. This includes Hamilton Pool. It includes the Roy Creek Canyon Reserve, which is located within the borders of the property, Mirasol Springs property. And so there's concern that any sort of construction on this site will damage those springs, but also any sort of groundwater pumping that occurs could limit those springs producing water in the future. And the original plans for Mirasol Springs called for groundwater pumping and river water removal, but they have since, after some pushback from landowners, push for this water line installation. And that's what happened yesterday.
You've been covering all the twists and turns of this particular project, but remind us about what happened on Monday.
So on Monday, this water line. So let me talk about the water line. This is the idea of bringing water from west of 71 at the West Travis County Public Utility Agency. They're going to bring water to this development down past Highway 12. So a good distance. They'll use a 3-inch water line. Currently, there's some larger water lines in the area, but they're going to reduce it from a 4-inch to a 3-inch at the property. That way, other developers can hook up to this line in the future. Is kind of the thought process. Also, again, there's only 40 homes, a hotel, stuff like that on the property. They don't need as much water as some other places. So on Monday, the contract got approved to move forward with writing of the contract for this utility line to be installed. And a lot of landowners have pushed back on this. They're concerned by adding this utility line, they're going to see an increase in development in the area. They're going to see an increasing groundwater depletion. They've cited a 2015 study by the Meadows Center. That study looked specifically at the 290 highway. There was a water line installed there that ran to Dripping Springs. That water line was more meant to encourage development. And since that, they've been pushing that study. The author of that study has come forward and said, hey, that's not really the same application here. That was a big water line. This is a small water line, so less of a concern there. So it got approved. Now they're going to move forward, and the developer's going to decide, hey, should we sign off on this contract or not?
Kind of talk about next steps now that the water line is moving forward. What happens next?
So as I was walking out of the meeting yesterday, I talked to, I don't know, 10, 15 different people, something like that. And we were walking around, I'm asking them, hey, what happened just now? And everyone was a little confused. And they all said they felt bittersweet about it. But what we understand is they were given 48 hours to write this contract, and they're going to post it online That's going to be up for 30 days till the next board hearing of the WTC PUA. At that time, then the developers will decide if they want to accept the terms of the contract, which came with further restrictions than were initially put forward, including no new wells and inspections on the property that would, if they violate any of the restrictions, and there's numerous restrictions, you can read all about them on KXAN.com. If they violate any of those restrictions, they get their water shut off within 60 days. So they have all these additional restrictions that have been added to the contract. So in 30 days, and in December, when that board meeting happens, they have to decide, do we want to accept these restrictions for this water line? I don't know what they're going to do. I have my guesses, but it seemed like people were excited about it and happy about the outcome, but also a little sad because this is moving forward still. And landowners in the area are concerned about the future of their property. But this development seems to be taking the right steps. They have said the things that they want to. So they say that, hey, I want to do these things, right? Let's just hope they keep doing them.
And I know you'll be following it all.
I'm going to keep with it. It's been 2.5 years now. Might as well keep going, I guess.
Well, Eric Henderson, thank you again for being with us.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Welcome back, everybody, and happy Tuesday. Hope you all are enjoying your days with us here. Thanks for being with us on KXAN News at noon. We're looking live and Dripping Springs on what is shaping up to be an absolutely gorgeous day out there. Temperatures, though, are going to take a bit of a dive tomorrow. We'll have an update about that coming up in just a few moments with Freddie.
Well, we're getting a first look at some of the new floats hitting the 98th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Always a good tradition.
Yes.
These are 2 of the 6 new floats that will debut in the parade. The Strikes Again by Go Bowling float features a fully kinetic bowler and a platform that are powered by an electric battery. And Macy's said over 100 hours of work went into sculpting the faces of both Wednesday and Pugsley Addams on Netflix's Wednesday Feast float.
Wow, they're getting more and more high tech. Well, other floats debuting at the parade include Candy Cosmos by Haribo, Dora's Fantastical Rainforest by Nickelodeon and Paramount, Magic Meets the Seas by Disney Cruise Line, Pasta Night by Rouse Homemade, and Wondrous World of Wildlife by the Bronx Zoo.
First warning weather with meteorologist Freddie Fela.
Those all look really, really cool. So clear skies right now across Central Texas. It's going to stay like that. And tonight we have a front on the way. As we zoom out a bit more, no one's really seeing any activity across the state. Even deep South Texas continuing to be calm this morning. Cloud coverage only out towards Oklahoma. Other than that, our temperatures rebounding back up one more time. 74 in Fredericksburg, 74 in Mason, 77 in Llano, 74 in Austin, 71 right now in Bastrop. At San Marcos currently at about 81 degrees. And in fact, that should be your high for today across most of the area. About 81 to 82. We could even reach up to about 84 degrees in certain spots. And mostly around the metro compared to everywhere else that may just remain a bit cooler. Sunny skies, and then by the evening hours, we're looking at clear skies, 71 degrees. Overall, what we're waiting for is that next front to arrive. It's going to happen sometime after midnight. We expect for that front to come in and bring with it some cooler weather with it. Not that this morning wasn't already cold, it's just that we're expecting even colder for tomorrow. In fact, today will be the last time we see 80s for a couple of days. As we look at your airport forecast for tomorrow, morning will be at around 49 degrees. I don't expect any weather delays there. By the time we get to the afternoon, temperature should be at about 66 degrees. And then for the evening hours, we're back down to around 53 degrees with, again, unlikely weather delays at all for any of the periods. Now, after the front comes in and after we deal with a cooler tomorrow, we'll be dealing with an even cooler Thursday morning. 34 as a possibility in Fredericksburg, the same out towards Mason. 36 as we get out towards Llano. Austin should be at about 40 degrees. Dripping Springs at around 39, and LaGrange at around 37. So just be prepared. Keep the jackets ready, especially when you drop off the little ones. But by the afternoon, they may not need it as our temperatures rebound back up one more time. So will it affect your Thursday night football? Well, it is going to be a tad chillier outside. If you don't want to be out there, you can watch the game on KBVO. Kickoff at around 58 degrees, by the halftime 56, and for the fourth quarter around 53 with clear skies continuing overall. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. There go the 80s. Wednesday 69, Thursday 73, by Friday 74. Get some moisture rolling back in, so here comes the clouds one more time. And then by Sunday into Monday, our temperatures will be back up into the 80s.
Well, the holiday season gives scammers another chance to trick people, according to the AARP. The organization released a report that found nearly 4 in 5 American consumers have experienced some type of fraud this year, including gift card scams.
The group's research also showed some are unaware of the fraud that can happen even when they're shopping online. This afternoon, we're going to talk about awareness and prevention with Kathy Stokes. She is the director of the fraud prevention programs at the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We really want people to be able to spot some of these scams easily. So what are some of the ones that usually surface during the holidays?
The one that we're seeing that I think is concerning is the amount of people who are experiencing fraud when they try to buy something from an ad they see on social media. We found that about half of us will, purchase something this way, but a third of us are actually defrauded by doing that. So I think it just suggests that it's not a safe way to shop.
And Kathy, a lot of people have already started some of their shopping. The National Retail Federation estimates that a record 183 million people will shop in stores and online from Thanksgiving Day through Cyber Monday this year. But before someone hits buy on a website, what are the red flags they should pay attention to?
One of the more important things is to not trust text messages with links or email messages with links. And we're all getting bombarded as the holidays start up. Buy this here, get a discount there. But we don't know if that's a legitimate text message or a legitimate email. And it's harder still because of new technologies. So go right to a website by going to your web browser and typing in the web address. If it's a company you haven't heard of before, but you're interested in learning what they have, type that company name in and add the word scam or fraud and see what comes up. And you may be surprised to find that people have already reported it.
That's some good advice, too. Gift cards, those are obviously seen as a safe choice when you're struggling to pick out a present for somebody, but these can often be tied to fraud as well. In your research, what do those kinds of scams look like, and what should buyers watch out for now?
Yeah, it's so frustrating. We keep seeing year over year an increase in people who say that they've experienced giving or receiving a gift card that doesn't have a balance on it. And, sometimes I guess there could be an error at the point of purchase, so always keep that receipt. But quite often what is happening is these criminals are going into retail stores, taking the cards off the racks, exposing the information on the back of the cards, recording it, putting them back up there and just waiting for people to buy those cards. And as soon as they are purchased, they drain the funds. They also have an electronic means of doing this. They call them ghost bots that ping around the internet. Okay, I don't really know the technology behind it, but they ping around the internet and they look for cards that have value and then drain them.
Yeah, you have to be on the lookout. I didn't even realize all of these high-tech ways that people are able to do this.
Yeah.
But if someone unfortunately falls for one of these scams, what's your advice about what they should do next?
Well, interestingly, 2/3 of people who've experienced having that gift card with no value were able to get some of it back by contacting the retailer or the issuer from the number on the back of the card. So don't give up. Use it. Don't let it sit in your purse or your wallet for 6 months. But if something happens to you and involves your bank, call the bank right away. See if you can stop the damage. We all should be reporting fraud when we experience a loss to the police. They have to know what's happening out there. And you want to have a report on file in case down the road you have some means of restitution available to you.
Yeah, and Kathy, before we let you go, I want to mention again that you work for the AARP Fraud Watch Network and recently put out a report into what kinds of scams your organization is seeing more often. Can you talk to us about what that report showed more in depth than what we've already highlighted?
Yeah, there's a part of the survey that we repeat year after year. It's 10 questions, true or false, on how much you know about being safe online when you're shopping. And sadly, from last year to this year, on a couple of those questions, more than a few, the knowledge dropped. So we're seeing people that have less awareness this year than last, that peer-to-peer apps do not have the same credit card protections as, they don't have the credit card protections. So when you use a peer-to-peer app to purchase a product and that product never makes it to you, you're out of luck. If you had bought that with a credit card, you could dispute it with the credit card company. So that's an important one. And then another one was if you're having a problem on your online account with the retailer, most people, 64%, think that they would expect that help person would ask you for your username and password. They will never do that. That gets you right into your accounts, and that can be a real mess. So anytime you're dealing with something like that and someone says, well, just give me your username and password, hang up. You know that that's a scam.
That's a good place to leave it for now. Kathy Stokes with the AARP. Thanks again for being with us this afternoon.
I appreciate you.
In-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News at Noon.
There have been 62 homicides in Austin this year. The latest 4 happening within a week of each other.
Austin police told us more about these cases today. A news conference at the APD headquarters wrapped up just about an hour ago. KXAN's Mercedes Hernandez is joining us here, and after listening to that update, and Mercedes, what's the latest about what police had to say?
Yeah, so no major revelations came out of this kind of latest update from APD, but they mostly just asked for the public's help in providing any information that anybody who may have witnessed these 5 different cases to please come forward and share what they know. Now, here's a look at where they happened. You can see that they were across town, and APD does stress that they are unrelated. Now, the first happened on November 7th on Rosewood Avenue. Now, APD says a man was found with a gunshot wound and died at the hospital. Now, that's why November the 8th is there on your screen right now. Now, the next homicide was on November 10th. That was Elijah Martinez. He was stabbed at a homeless encampment on East William Cannon Drive and was taken to a hospital where he later died. The next on November 13th, APD says a man was found at the C-Mart on South 1st Street, bleeding from a puncture wound to his chest. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. An arrest was made in this case. Now, APD's update here was identifying the deceased as Marco Antonio Nunez Mayan. Now, on the 15th, APD says Travis Holland, who was 32, died from an apparent gunshot wound. He'd been shot at Goldfinch Court in North Austin. An arrest and murder charge made here. And the latest was on November 16th. APD says on Saturday after 4 a.m., they found Jessica Shaw at the Aspero Rutland Apartments. APD says 2 people were fighting over a gun next door and it went off, hitting and killing Shaw. One man has since been charged with aggravated robbery in this case. It's unclear if he will be charged with the more serious crime of murder or just Shaw's death. Now, the apartment building where Shaw was killed is the city's first permanent supportive housing community for those experiencing homelessness. APD says Shaw was homeless at the time of her death, but she didn't live there. She was just visiting a friend. Now, the department says what happened here is a tragedy and shouldn't be used to villainize the people communities like this project are trying to help.
First warning weather.
Well, this is a live look out in Dripping Springs this morning. Beautiful clear skies. Feels pretty good out there today.
Yeah, such a nice day for sure. But Freddie, we are going to see a bit of a roller coaster ride with the temperatures coming up.
Oh, for sure, especially what we've been seeing not only today but yesterday as we've gotten close to the 80s or actually hitting the 80s. In fact, take a look at yesterday. And the reason I bring this up is because we have a little trifecta going on here. Normal temperatures around this time of year is 71 degrees. We hit 79, but the record was 85. So we landed right in the middle of that. Today, though, we're expecting to hit about 84 degrees. The record for today is 87, and that was set back in 1950. So obviously, we don't want that warmth. We want to get as close to 71 as possible. And it looks like yesterday we didn't do it, and today we definitely will not at all. Satellite and radar at this time, clear skies. In fact, here's a live look at our LI Medical Emergency Room camera in Dripping Springs. A beautiful blue out there, just not where we want to be right now as far as temperatures are concerned. And tomorrow we'll be at about 69 degrees, Thursday 75, and Friday at 74 degrees. We'll slowly start warming up, but we'll only be about 2 or 3 degrees above average temperatures until we get to Saturday. And then we see a bit of a change out there. In fact, Saturday, we should be at 71 degrees at 6 p.m., which is not where we want to be, but that's all right in case you want to go check out the Texas State game against Georgia State. That's going to be at 6 p.m. on Saturday in San Marcos. By 8 p.m., we're looking at 66 degrees, and by 10 p.m., 64 degrees. So what am I tracking? Well, I'm tracking that next front that's on the way. I'm going to be tracking the cold mornings and tell you how cold it'll be. And we have a steady weather pattern. Plus, we're going to go a bit in depth in talking about radiational cooling and how that affects you. That's all coming up in just a moment.
Throughout time, I've had several people discourage me from, saying too much about it, because it just dredge up old memories. I don't think there's anything that is sadder than a young girl dying.
What was it like growing up in Marble Falls in the 1960s?
For me, you couldn't have asked for a better place to be. It was still rural for the most part.
How many people were you going to school with?
I think there were around 60 in our class.
You were in the same grade as Danon Lewis.
We were in the 8th grade. This is a picture of Danon. This is a picture of me. We both named Lewis, so naturally we would come close together. She was just a pretty girl, blonde hair, long blonde hair. She's kind of stayed in the background. She was just maybe on the shy side, if nothing else. It's the way I remember her. There were several of my classmates that lived within a few blocks of her.
As I remember that area of town, back then it was extremely woodsy. Basically one route back over to this side of town because of Backbone Creek. It was just open to be explored.
It was an innocent time.
What do you mean by that?
Well, being in the rural area, we just weren't exposed to things that you would living in the city.
This hill country town, an hour northwest of Boston, where 13-year-old Lenice Danon Lewis and her classmates grew up, was a much different place than the Marble Falls of today. In 1965, the population barely peaked 2,000. There was no police department here, no medical examiner within 100 miles.
The county sheriff mostly handled what little crime there was, and when someone died, it fell to the local justice of the peace.
This incident happened in November. It just always was a story that haunted all of us. She had gone home and mixed up a cake and put it in the oven for them to have that night for dinner. And then she started mopping the kitchen. And then all of a sudden, then she disappeared. The cake's still in the oven, burned by the time I guess somebody got there. And that's kind of what tipped them off that she was missing. And then a few hours later, she was found in a small shed behind the house, hanging. It wasn't the norm for Marble Falls to have an 8th grade girl die or be murdered. It was a real shock to all of us. It wouldn't take very much of an investigator to figure that out, that something doesn't smell right about the whole thing.
Things like that didn't happen in Marble Falls.
Especially to someone so young.
Yes.
There was an undercurrent somewhere, somehow, that must have caused this to happen, because I don't think she died by her own hand.
Records from any investigation in that area of Marble Falls in the 60s are missing. Officials found nothing in the archives except Danon Lewis's death certificate, signed by Justice of the Peace, or JP C.B. Wall. He listed the cause as an accidental strangulation, suggesting she tied the rope around her own neck too tight. It's a narrative Judge Wall maintained since the beginning, telling the local newspaper early on he was convinced she died of an accidental hanging. But many people in Marble Falls refused to accept that. What was the reaction from your classmates when that news came out?
It's just like unbelievable that she would do anything like that.
We just didn't see any way that that was what happened. You know, she was murdered.
In a public notice, Judge Wall acknowledged rumors about foul play and offered a $100 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction in the case. That never happened.
Could you imagine that something like this was an accident?
No, it just seemed more of a fanciful cover-up, if nothing else.
Like the hundreds of other JPs across Texas, Judge Wall had a lot of responsibilities and power. He could issue warrants, hold court, perform marriages, and because his county had no medical examiner, he served as coroner and investigated deaths himself, even though he wasn't a doctor with any medical training.
That role is unique to Texas and still exists today, nearly 60 years later. Plus, since it's an elected position, some say it can get very political.
Politics does play a role in everything. You know, they're all trying to look as good and not have a bunch of unsolved cases laying around if they're going to get reelected. It was just going to be too hard to solve. Close the book, we'll move on to the next thing. And I think that did happen. That's what really rankles so many of us.
Wall was up for re-election just 6 months after Danon died. While campaigning, he told the local paper he'd served the community to the best of his ability. He won another term, and a few months later, Danon's parents sold their home and moved away. Within a few years, Judge Wall died. Most in Danon's family still living wouldn't speak with us on the record about her nearly forgotten story.
This is the funeral notice. This was where her death was in the newspaper.
Then a few years back, her classmate, Ronnie Lewis, started sharing memories on social media.
I have a Facebook group, and we pretty well try to cover different topics from the Marble Falls, Burnett County area, just historical content, and so that's kind of how I got involved with the story.
He posted what he could recall about the case.
It was called The Young Girl That Was Murdered Down by Backbone Creek.
And over time, hundreds of comments and follow-up posts poured in.
There would be more discussion on those threads than just about anything else we did, because there was so much left unsaid. I had different ones that came to me and told me what they knew about it.
Including discrepancies they saw on the death certificate, like Judge Wall's indication Danon was playing in the shed with others before she disappeared, but reports say it then took her brother and his friends 2 hours to find her hanging there.
And it was always said that she was hanging like from a rafter or something, but her knees were touching the ground. Well, you know, it didn't take much imagination to figure out something's wrong.
What are some of the theories that you've heard over the years about what might have happened in this case?
There was somebody that was visiting the neighborhood that had a bad criminal history that could have done it. He had some peeping Tom issues, and he was staying within a few houses of Danon's family. I mean, there's a lot of speculation.
Speculation that almost seemed to flow along Backbone Creek, Danon's neighborhood, the precinct where Judge Wall presided over several other unattended deaths that year, leading up to his re-election. Most of those were suicides, something officials today tell us would be cause for careful consideration and an expert medical opinion.
And while he had discretion to err on the side of caution and ask a local doctor to conduct an autopsy, or maybe even send bodies to a bigger county with a medical examiner, he didn't in all of these cases, including Danon's. It was something that caught the attention of the woman who holds Wall's seat today. If you suspect a crime has occurred related to that death, what do you do at that point?
I'm pretty well going to send that person first off for an autopsy.
We learned that no autopsy was done in this case.
Oh, okay.
The time frame, for some, it seemed rather quick to close something like that without an autopsy.
I know that I would have definitely wanted an autopsy, you know, on that child.
Online now, A Hanging on Backbone Creek, the complete digital investigation. Watch the entire docuseries, explore the Danon Lewis mystery and other reports on Texas's Justice of the Peace system, and more including an update on how our questions could soon lead to change at the state capitol. And don't forget to listen to a new season of our Catalyst podcast, where we take a closer look at this 60-year-old case and how our team pieced the evidence together. Just go to kxan.com/Backbone Creek.
Now, first warning weather with meteorologist Freddie Vela.
So I'm going to start off with our hours of daylight here and what we're experiencing today and what we could experience in the next few days. Today we have about 10 hours and 32 minutes of daylight, but our shortest day is actually December 21st. That's about 10 hours and 11 minutes. So we're almost there, about 20 minutes to shave off until that's the maximum we reach, and then we start to see days get longer once again. We got a while till we get there. The longest day is actually in June. So let's also take a look at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. when we can see some of those happening. Our next 6 p.m. sunset is actually not until January 23rd, and that obviously will be at 6 p.m. itself. March 9th, when we spring forward, that's our next 7 p.m. sunset at 7:35 p.m. And then, of course, as we reach into the summer hour days, June 22nd to July 8th, that's when we see our latest sunsets at around 8:36 p.m. So with our days getting shorter right now and longer nights, we have the cold fronts coming through and a lot of them much drier air coming in. What's going to happen to us overnight? Well, we're going to see the temperatures drop just like what we saw last night. And I don't mean just normal drop. I mean actually drop pretty far low, and then during the day start to see those temperatures rise pretty quickly. So let's take a look at why. Well, during the day we get that solar radiation and of course heats up the ground. We also have the earth that also has its own heat that it releases, so you get that daytime heating. And at night, the heat actually escapes out towards space. But if there's cloud coverage, it kind of traps it in and then bounces it right back, and so that can reheat the surface just a bit. However, the past couple of nights and the nights coming up, we don't have cloud coverage. So on clear nights, all that radiation escapes into space and we get cooler temperatures. And that's radiational cooling. And that's what we've been dealing with. That's what we saw last night. And that's what we're going to see as we get to Thursday morning with that next front coming through. The main difference that we're seeing is your low on Sunday was actually 66 degrees, but that drier air has now filtered in and will continue to filter in, and our temperatures will drop quickly down into the 40s and 30s as we get into Thursday morning. So satellite and radar right now showing exactly what I talked about, the clear skies, and that continues overall. So what's going to happen after the front comes in? You're going to see the temperatures drop. The front expected to arrive Tuesday into Wednesday as temperatures drop down to 69 degrees. By Thursday, 73, but look at Thursday morning, 40 degrees. By Friday, 44, and then we slowly warm up as we get into the weekend.
Well, we're getting to learn more about the couple reunited with a wedding record lost years ago. Now, yesterday we told you how a woman found a vinyl recording of a 1966 wedding at an Austin thrift store. Well, Dr. Phil Schmidt and Donna Packer married and moved to Austin, where they lived for more than 40 years. Phil actually worked at the University of Texas as a professor. In 2022, the Schmidts moved to a retirement community in Denver, but before they left, they held an estate sale. Donna says the wedding record somehow ended up in the wrong vinyl sleeve and got donated, but thankfully that record is on its way to its rightful place with the Schmidt family just a couple of months after their 58th wedding anniversary. So a really nice ending to that story, kind of full circle now for them to have that back.
Our digital reporter Kelsey Thompson has been following that story, and it was such a sweet one to all put out there because, you know, the person who got the record contacted her, and then that was seen by the woman whose voice was on that record, and now it's all going back to the right place. Amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I go like thrifting and antiquing, but I never come across anything cool like that.
I know. Well, you just got to keep going.
Right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everyone gets to keep their belongings and we don't have to deal with that.
Right.
Or if something is like that, contact us. Let us know. We'd love to help get that back home. Something else we love is the forecast over the next couple of hours. Take a look at what we're going to be experiencing. By 2 p.m., back up into the 80s. By 5 p.m., we're looking about 78 degrees, and by 8 p.m. we should be at about 68 degrees. But one common denominator here is that it's going to remain clear all day long. Your 7-day forecast will take us back down Wednesday to 69 degrees as the front comes in overnight tonight. but we're looking at temperatures down into the 30s and 40s on Thursday before we start to warm up again for the UT game. 78 degrees overall for the day itself, which is not bad at all.
That's a good-looking forecast, I think.
For
Picture
sure.
perfect.
Well, Sarah, thank you for being with us today. We so appreciate it.
Thank y'all for having me. It was so much fun.
Yeah,
Love
we
it.
will see you all back in about 30 minutes with another update. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Take care.